Want to see how we fix scratches on cars and trucks? In this video, we'll show you how we do it. We'll explain how we do it. We'll show you what's going on behind the scenes, what you're not really seeing when you're repairing a scratch, and we'll show you one way to fix a scratch that's not going to cause more damage to your paintwork. So when it comes to scratch repair, we're looking at roughly 3 different options, as far as 4 technically, when it comes to repairing a scratch. So we can polish it. We can buff it. Buffing is going to be a little bit more aggressive. And buffing leaves its own type of marring behind. So if you're ever buffing a scratch and you get it out, you're going to have to come back and polish it, because in the right light, you're going to see where that scratch was, because you're going to see the marring that was left behind by the buffer. So that's going to always end up being a 2-step process. The next thing up from that is to wet sand. And if you're unfamiliar with wet sanding, I have a video on wet sanding, so you can go check that out. Get yourself a little more familiar with what it is, what we're talking about. Wet sanding is really kind of an approach that it speeds up the process. Everything is going to get more aggressive and get faster. So with polishing, yeah, you can get a scratch out if you just sat there all day and you could polish out a scratch. Buffing is going to be a little bit quicker, but it's going to be more aggressive. Wet sanding is going to make it a whole lot quicker, but it's going to be a lot more aggressive. And then again, of course, you're going to have to come back and you're going to have to buff and polish after you're done wet sanding. The 4th approach, I'll show you. It's easier just to show you on here instead of trying to explain it to you. A lot of times we can only make them look prettier. When people call me, that's usually what I tell them right off the bat. A good rule of thumb, if you can drag your fingernail across the scratch and you can feel it, but you can't hang on to it, it's probably shallow enough. We can get it out with no problem. When you can start grabbing onto it and actually really hook your fingernail onto it and really grab it, there's a good chance we might not be able to get it out. And I'm going to show you why in a second here. So you're going to have like scratches, like you're going to have like that really light marring from washing and stuff like that. We do this all day long. This stuff comes out no problem. All this light marring. So when you start getting into the deeper scratches, that you got to work them a little bit more. But this stuff will come out all day long. We do it all the time when we're doing ceramic coatings. So that's not a problem. But when you get into the deeper scratches, so say you got something like this. And the reason why you can see a scratch is because the way the light is shining into it now. You no longer have a flat surface. So the light is shining into this and bouncing off in every which way, in every direction. And the scratch isn't perfect. It's not a perfect V. It's all messed up inside there. So the idea is, well, you want to get rid of that scratch. You want it to disappear. The idea is to take these walls and fan them out. Try and recreate a flat surface again. You're not going to be able to do that, but you can get really close. So the way we would do that is we come in and we buff, polish, or wet sand that surface until we did something like that. So we've removed that scratch, but this is where the issue comes in. Look at what we did to your clear coat. Where you went from a nice thick area of clear coat, this will be surrounding the scratch, be nice and thick. Now you've got less. This is the reason why we use a paint depth gauge. I'm looking for damage like this whenever, especially on a vehicle that's a couple years old, I'm looking for stuff like this. I want to know if there's been a scratch repair somewhere that you forgot to tell me about. Because now I got a whole lot less clear coat to work with. What happens if that scratch was a whole lot deeper and we had to come, and that scratch repair had to come down to fix it? Now there's a whole lot less. And then what if you get a scratch in that area again? Then it's not coming out, and I'll show you why in a minute. Now I got a whole lot less clear coat to work with. So I'm going to, as long as I'm going through and being really thorough and I'm using my paint depth gauge and I'm finding areas like this, I know to be very careful when it comes to polishing that area so I don't plow through your clear coat and right into the color coat. And if you're unfamiliar with how this works, you got your hood, door, roof, that's your panel. You got a layer of primer, you got your color coat, which is your color of the vehicle, black, white, red, blue, yellow, whatever, silver. And then you have the clear coat on top. Your clear coat is what's protecting that color coat. Your color coat is shiny to begin with. It's got more of a satin or matte look to it. That clear coat is what's giving it its shine. They used to, years ago, it used to be one thing. It used to be one part. It was a color and kind of like a clear all in one. And you just spray it on there and you're done. You've got a nice shiny paint job. Now they put the color on there, then they come back over it with the clear coat to give it its shine. And that clear coat, so now that clear coat is acting as a protective layer for your color coat. So what happens when we get into a situation where we've got a scratch that goes down into the color coat, you got a scratch that you're not going to be able to remove. As soon as we try and take that out, if I tried to polish, sand back, whatever I wanted to do to remove that scratch, well, one, it's still there. But now, two, I got a dull spot. And no amount of wax, sealant, or ceramic coating is going to cover that up and make it shiny again. It'll cover it up, but you're still going to see that dull spot right through it. Again, because color coats don't have any shine to them. That clear coat is what's creating the shine. So what do we do in a situation like that? And that's where you're getting into a situation where you can really hang on to it. If you can really hang on to it, you're getting drastically close to either that color coat or it's actually into the color coat. A lot of times scratches, rock chips, they go right through, right down to the primer or right down to the panel itself. That's why rock chips, that's the kind of stuff you want to take care of right away, especially if it's on a metal, if it's like on the hood of the vehicle. Front bumpers, usually don't have to worry about too much. Majority of front bumpers on cars are plastic, so it's not going to rust or anything. It's just going to kind of be unsightly. But what are we going to do? Ideally, you don't want to compromise this clear coat at all. You want to keep it as intact as possible. We don't want to keep coming back, and we don't want to keep sanding, polishing down this clear coat so you have less and less and less over time. So what do we want to do? And this is the fourth option. So you've got a scratch. A scratch like that. Maybe you got a scratch that goes, it is actually going into the color. So what do we want to do? Ideally, what you want to do is just fill this back in. Fill back in with this clear coat. When it goes down into the color coat, rock chip repair. Fill it back in. And then if you can, some clear coat over the top. The only issue that you run into, like I say with rock chips, a lot of times it's like a black button on a black shirt. You're going to notice it. And the reason why is because you're working with this rough edge, that sharp edge a lot of times, and it's really hard to blend paint. And that's where it's hit or miss when it comes to repairing rock chips or scratches. You're dealing with that sharp edge and getting it to fan out and feather it out and blend it so you can't see it is all dependent on this. It's really what I'm finding is becoming dependent on whether or not, that's a sharp edge or if it's a nice soft edge where you can, blend it out. I did a truck a couple weeks ago where we did some rock chip repair and I had some great success with a lot of the chips, and then some of the chips, you could still see them. And it's all because of that edge and trying to blend that edge out. So again, even in this type of situation, you can at least make it look better. And then here, at least you're protecting it. And so, if you want to check out that wet sanding video, check that out. And I'll talk to you soon.